we talked about Chelsea. As far as Liverpool are concerned, Jules painted the scenario. I want to believe it can happen. You know, they win the game in hand, they're 8 points back, and then they win the head-to-head, and they're just 5 points back. It's a big ask for City, but it's not unthinkable. But I kind of feel that Liverpool, while getting results, haven't, with some exceptions, they haven't been on the level that they can be at when everybody's fit, when they have all their options. I mean, leaving aside Salah and Mane, who obviously are away right now, but still, those guys aren't going to be back for a while. What can Klopp do? Because I don't think his bench is particularly deep. He's got to play the same guys. We saw, the other week when Milner played, what a disaster that was, and how different. I'm not picking on him, obviously, but he is 36, and you can't play at 36 the way you played at 25.
Definitely not.
I mean, like, a lot has to go right for Liverpool, right, for them to challenge.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that. But I think the difference between Liverpool and, say, Chelsea in this moment, apart from, say, the 3-point buffer they have, is Liverpool have been involved in a title race with Man City for the last 3 years or so. So they have a feeling of having won the Premier League, having gone head-to-head with someone, having had this sort of like ebb and flow, nip and tuck. Because I think this is obviously going against them, but I think it might have been 3 seasons ago where City played Liverpool just at the turn of the year. A big game where if Liverpool won, it'd be 10 points.
Yeah, they were 7 points behind,
Exactly, yeah. And City won, it went down to 4 or whatever. So they've had this sort of nip and tuck with City. But to be honest, the thing that's made the difference here, I think, and this is probably what's gone wrong with Chelsea, these big games, like, they matter. But City are top because they've won 12 games against absolutely anybody in the league. I think when you look at Liverpool, you look at Chelsea, they've drawn games and lost games and dropped points at a time where City were perfect because they were beating the opposition that they should have been beating. So for Liverpool, they can mix up their team and so on, but they need to just find that way to be clinical. Like, looking at them and the fact they've had 6 draws, like, that's why they're not top of the league. City have had to. They've lost the same amount of games as Man City.
Those are 12 points right there.
Yeah, I mean,
those 6 draws.
Yeah, and when I spoke to De Bruyne after the game, which is a cliche, but he said, those big games, you just have to win them. It's 6 points for you against Chelsea in the 2 games that you've won. And I know it's a bit stupid and silly, and of course, but you need to win every game. I know, but those head-to-heads, in a way, are so decisive because you would expect Chelsea to beat everybody else, and then it's only down to the games between Chelsea and City and Liverpool, and those games. And I can see his point. I think there's obviously more than that, but Liverpool need to be. They need to win the game in hand, and then if they're still 8 points, only 8 points behind City when that game arrives, it's the first weekend of April, I think, at the Etihad. This is the best they can do, is that not dropping, not losing any more points on City between now and the first weekend of April. If they do that, and that's 8 points there, could close to 5, then between April and mid-May, those next 6 weeks will be huge, and then I think anything can happen. But
yeah, you would still be asking City to lose 2 more games after that, which is, with Liverpool perfect, which I think is an ask. So what scenarios would this happen in? Because this is one of the things that strikes me about City, right? We've talked endlessly about how it really is a collective. We talked about how great De Bruyne is, and he's fantastic value added, but the also point is, not that long ago he was out for like 6 months and nobody seemed to notice, right? Ruben Dias, many had him as player of the season last year. And look, here comes Chelsea in this big game. What do? I drop Ruben Dias,
as you do,
As you do, right? Who is the most important, the most difficult player to replace? I would probably maybe lean towards Rodri because I'm not a Fernandinho fan.
Cancelo. That pass from Cancelo, by the way, deserves a lot of love because he breaks the lines, and then there's a lot of work for De Bruyne to do. But if you keep playing those passes all the time, at some point it will bring you a goal or a chance or a big chance. And the fact that he plays it one touch without even looking, knowing exactly where De Bruyne is, the tempo is perfect, the timing is perfect. It's an amazing pass.
Okay, yeah, I think Cancelo. I think that's a good shout. I would assume Ederson as well would figure there. I think there's a gap right now between him and Zach Steffen. Are those the three guys? I mean, do you agree with that assessment, Nedum? Rodri, Cancelo, and Stefan?
Not necessarily. I think Cancelo has been exceptional. But I think I can still see City winning the game if they play Zinchenko and Walker at fullback positions. I can still see that.
He just gives them an extra dimension, right? He doesn't create a gap when he's not there.
But it's not necessarily. It's not like it's an absolute pleasure to have him in your team. But for me, it's not an essential because they have so many other people. I think Edison, obviously, I think Zach Stefan's a good goalkeeper, but Edison's special. And then as for the Rodri situation, I think Rodri's been one of City's best players this whole season. And interestingly, it's come at a time where when Fernandinho plays, he doesn't look the same as he did at the end of last season when he was like very, very good. So the drop off as it stands, because obviously Fernandinho could find form, it feels far greater when Rodri's not playing as opposed to say any of those other players as such. And also to mention the City thing, it's their style of play is so significant and more important than the individuals. That is why you can have Diaz and Gundogan on the bench, because let me be honest with you, those are two of City's captains. Like, they literally, like, Gundogan is captain 1, Diaz is captain 2, but they can both be on the bench for what was arguably the biggest game of the season so far. So, as I say, it just shows so much like strength that comes through that collective.
What if, boys, they go find the Champions League? Could that? I mean, I know he hasn't disturbed them really before, so I don't see why he would disturb them. And the focus switches to the Champions League, and the players are more thinking about the Champions League and Pep, which means maybe dropping a few points there and there, a draw there, maybe a defeat there in the Premier League, or that it doesn't really work like this.
I think it can happen, but as Nedum just said, it's so much about the group, about the collective that, you know, if you go and you lose a Champions League first leg and you're humiliated badly by somebody good, let's say, right? I'm imagining the players who don't play in that game for City coming in and being like, we weren't a part of that, we're going to fix this now, right? It's hard to see how this would have a knock-on effect. I mean, I think, for me, it would take a prolonged period of unavailability for Rodri. And I know it's not just Fernandinho who can come in, Gundogan can come in and play that role, but Gundogan, I think, plays that role very differently from Rodri.
Yeah, of course.
You know, you can ask him to. He's not going to have that presence, and I think that matters. But we're talking about extreme scenarios, and I hate anointing somebody in January, but I think it's fair to say it looks like the title is City's to lose.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.